She had issues that it was not fully reported enough. She wanted to make sure that there were voices from the administration being able on camera, on the record, to articulate both why they had done what they had done and defend their positions from the toughest accusations and the toughest evidence that 60 Minutes' journalists had been able to summon.
Which, by the way, David, I mean, that seems, from a journalistic point of view, that seems like a pretty reasonable request. Do you think the journalists at 60 Minutes did enough of that in the story that was supposed to happen?
You know, it's a little hard for me to imagine. Certainly Sharon Alfonsi, the correspondent on the segment, as you alluded to in an email that she circulated to colleagues 38 minutes after the show announced that her segment would not be running Sunday night, said that she had reached out to Homeland Security, to the Department of State, to the White House, to try to get people, and that they had said no comment, and that as a result, Barry Weiss was effectively handing a veto or a kill decision over to the White House. I will say this morning, Axios' Sarah Fisher reports, and I find her reporting over time to be credible, that there were actually comments from those agencies, and that it was a little surprising, in effect, that they were not incorporated. We don't know what the text of those comments are. I think the real problem, in terms of the question of good faith, is that Barry Weiss did so late in the game. Is that the sort of thing that the editor-in-chief should be weighing in on 36 hours before the broadcast?
Well, David, we should say Barry Weiss, the editor, she was a controversial reporter for this report at CBS News, and she reports directly to Barry Weiss and David Ellison, who, of course, has some close ties to President Trump. Is your thoughts on why that's an important part of his controversy?
It's impossible to look at the reaction to what she did in the absence of that fact. You know, she was brought in as David Ellison, the head of Skydance, was making a series of concessions to President Trump's chief broadcast regulator. That's the chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr, to show that CBS News would be more hospitable and welcoming to conservatives, and particularly to sort of Trump-minded conservatives. Her appointment was not part of that, but it's clear that Ellison wanted to acquire a website, Free Press, started with the chief editor for other folks, which really has built into its formula the idea that most of the mainstream press is reflexive and unfair to conservatives and to President Trump. And, you know, her site was acquired by Ellison, and she was appointed to that job in part to show people that things would be different, and in part to make things different at CBS. Now, that's not to say her voice isn't valuable, but it is part of the through text. In addition, not only did they achieve the takeover of CBS's parent company, Paramount, this past summer, but David Ellison and his father, the founder of Oracle, and as you say, an ally and financial backer of President Trump, are also seeking to make a hostile bid to take over Warner Brothers Discovery, the parent company of CNN. CNN's fate is something in which President Trump has explicitly and repeatedly taken a strong interest, and if their bid is to succeed, both with shareholders and with federal antitrust regulators, they're seeking to show President Trump that they will be accommodating to him and welcoming of him. And right now, President Trump has not been happy with coverage on 60 Minutes in recent weeks. So the context of Barry Weiss's decision on this is not being evaluated on its own terms. It's part of this larger corporate and political context that it's hard to disentangle from, even if, at its heart, this looks like a new leader coming in, wanting things to be done in a different way, not understanding the rhythms and the mores entirely of the franchise, the valuable franchise that she's seeking to reshape.
NPR media correspondent David Fulton. Thanks as always.
You bet.
Many of us covet coastal real estate, views or beach access, except when there's constant flooding of homes and nearby roads. That risk is increasing in Massachusetts due in part to climate change and sea level rise. Some governments offer cash to coastal residents to move to less risky places. WBOR's Vivian Law met one homeowner in Newburyport who took the deal.
Plum Island was Lee McLaughlin's happy place for most of her life. She spent childhood summers at her grandpa's beachfront cottage, which overlooks the spot where the Merrimack River meets the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, there were so many memories. We'd spend long hours on the beach, digging for clams. We'd go fishing with fishing rods that my grandfather made from bamboo. We'd have roaring
in addition to having people not live in homes that flood.
But managed retreat can be a tough sell. Former Newburyport Conservation Administrator Julia Gottfredson oversaw the Plum Island buyout into retirement this year. She says most residents don't want to talk about moving.
They moved to Plum Island because they love the beach, they love Plum Island. And the idea that they would have to leave is offensive to some.
There are also logistical challenges, like how cities and towns pay their share of any deal. On Plum Island, just one structure will be demolished. Other homes and utilities like sewage lines remain in harm's way.
You hope that with these buyout programs, you're solving a problem, a larger problem. We solved a very important problem for this one individual property owner. But we didn't really solve a problem of moving infrastructure out of that high hazard area. Everyone else still lives there.
And hazards on the island are increasing, so Gottfredson says planning for managed retreat is still important. But the future of FEMA and its ability to fund buyouts is now in question as the Trump administration signals a desire to overhaul the agency. A loss of federal support could deal a huge blow to efforts to encourage retreat from risky coastal areas. A 2020 study found that since the 1980s, federal grants helped acquire more than 40,000 flood-prone properties across the country. State-run programs like the one in New Jersey typically rely on federal funding from agencies like FEMA. Island residents say there are better solutions, like moving sand from the Merrimack River to replenish the eroding beach, or ideally a permanent fix to the jetty. Stan Sachs considered a buyout offer a few years ago, but he says the price didn't match what his land was worth. He says buyouts like McLaughlin's could be more common in years from now.
This will the city of justice.
In the meantime, he has no plans to leave the island. As for sea level rise, Sachs says it will be a problem in a few decades, not in his lifetime. For Here and Now, I'm Vivian Law.
It's here and now.
Live from NPR News in Boston, I'm Josie Polino. The U.S. economy grew more than expected in the third quarter, powered by steady consumer spending, especially on healthcare. According to the Commerce Department, the gross domestic product, or the broadest measure of the nation's economic activity, grew at an annual rate of 4.3% in July through September. That was much faster than the 3.8% growth seen in the previous 3 months. But lately, recent polling finds Americans are increasingly glum about affordability and the cost of living. The U.S. military says it has conducted another strike against a boat in the East Pacific Ocean, killing one person. The Pentagon has repeatedly said that such targeted vessels are carrying narcotics to the U.S. U.S. Southern Command provided no evidence that the vessel was engaged in drug smuggling. At least 105 people have been killed in 29 known strikes since early September. Ukraine's own Dancing with the Stars is back on, just for one special episode. This time, the stars of the country's wartime heroes, underscoring the nation's resilience in tough times. Before the war, the Ukrainian version of the international franchise was hugely popular. President Volodymyr Zelensky, then and after, won the dance competition in 2006. This is Here and Now.
Hey everybody, I'm Scott Gregory and I do the Museum Confidential podcast here at the station with Jeff Martin. Jeff, tell me about the latest episode.
It's kind of a homegrown episode. We have a new show called Interwoven at Philbrook, and it dives deep into the world of, wait for it, baskets, everybody.
Okay.
Everything you always wanted to know about baskets.
Baskets, all right. Find it online, publicradiotulsa.org. Under programs, click on Museum Confidential. The show is called The Case for Baskets.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by the George Kaiser Family Foundation, a Tulsa-based charitable foundation dedicated to providing equal opportunity for children through investments in early childhood education, community health, and civic enhancements. Information at gkff.org.
National Public Radio for Northeastern Oklahoma from the University of Tulsa. Public Radio 89.5, KWGS HD1, Tulsa.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from the Mehrotra Institute at Boston University, hosting the Is Business Broken podcast, featuring conversations with academics, industry leaders, and politicians. More at ibms.bu.edu. And the Museum of Science, Boston, where visitors can experience live presentations with indoor lightning storms, animals, robotics, and hands-on design challenges. Learn more at mos.org.
It's here and now. 50 years ago today, President Ford signed into law the Metric Conversion Act that had the power to change how far you drive, miles to kilometers, how heavy your groceries are, ounces became grams, and how full your glasses, fluid ounces, became liters. But 50 years later, meager progress. In fact, a Saturday Night Live skit last year made a mockery of our measurements today.
We'll measure weights in pounds, and 2,000 pounds shall be called a ton.
And what will 1,000 pounds be called, sir?
Nothing.
So, why are we not more metric in America? Let's put that to Don Hilger. He's president of the U.S. Metric Association. Don, welcome. And first, what kind of reaction do you get when you tell people about your organization?
Most people are quite amazed that there's even an organization that is behind this. Probably because we're not a very big group. We probably only have a couple hundred members at this point here. We were quite strong back in the 70s and 80s when the U.S. government and a number of other countries in the world were switching to the metric system. But the Metric Conversion Act was basically voluntary, and the government didn't force the issue. So here we are kind of in limbo.
Well, let me ask you about what happened after 1975. As you've said, it was voluntary, there were a few takers, but why were there not a widespread amount of takers?
Well, there was a lot of interest in switching, and a number of people thought this was a great thing. I mean, we're going to finally get into a more logical measurement system than what we have now, which is really a kludge of various measurement units. And that's why we have things like 5280 feet in a mile. I mean, it wasn't designed that way. Nobody would choose that if they were designing a new system. It just happened to be that's the way things worked out. The government really didn't do its PR on this and try to show the reason why we should change, and therefore there was a lot of pushback.
Well, we should note, right, that there is some metric system in modern American society today. Milliliters and grams we use, say, for medicine, kilos for some food packaging. Where have we actually incorporated some metric measures in our society?
Well, quite a bit, actually. You mentioned the food labels, the food facts, the grams of carbs and grams of protein, and then the big ones are manufacturers, all of them basically converted to the metric system because they saw the need to work in a global market and not try to fight that by building things differently here than they do around the world and being able to swap components. And even though when they sell you the car, they still tell you how many pounds it is or how fast it goes or, whatever.
You've been working on this, as you say, since the 70s. Have you had all the hope squeezed out of you? Or where do you have hope going forward?
No, not at all. I mean, we continue it. We still have an organization. We still have a number of people that are very active and do a number of things. One of the projects is to work with teachers, and we think really that's part of the crux is to get teachers to understand the metric system well enough to teach it well, bring students in and show them how much simpler it is to weigh or measure things in metric than it is in our units. And most people don't understand our current system and what it's based on. If we were metric, we would never in the world go back to the system we have now. I mean, it's just so illogical.
You are a patient man. Don Hilger is president of the U.S. Metric Association and it's metric today and has been at it since the 1970s. Don, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks again.
You're listening to Hear It Now.
Ottoboni's cookie, the talisman of happiness, has been a household staple in Italian kitchens for nearly a century.
She turned it into this magical cookbook that told you how to play the symphony of Italian cuisine from just a few simple notes.
I'm Elsie Che. How this 1929 classic finally got its full English translation on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Join us this afternoon at 4 on Public Radio 89.5. As we look back on the events of 2025, it's a reminder that independent journalism is the backbone of a healthy democracy. And when a democracy is facing threats, a strong and free press is even more important. This is Anna Metcalf. Your financial support will help Public Radio Tulsa and NPR sustain this important work in the year ahead. Your year-end donation really makes a difference at publicradiotulsa.org. Thank you.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by contributing listeners like you and by the Tulsa Zoo, offering annual zoo memberships that support the zoo's conservation mission. More about zoo membership is available at tulsazoo.org/membership.
National Public Radio from the University of Tulsa. Public Radio 89.5 KWGS HD1 Tulsa.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, defending church-state separation and the First Amendment, including freedom of the press, for nearly 80 years. Learn more at au.org. And City Space Productions, WBUR's creative studio for custom podcasts that tell a brand's story to ignite engagement, reach new audiences, or enhance customer connections. WBUR.org/creative studio.
From NPR and WBUR, I'm Scott Tong in Washington, D.C.
I'm Peter O'Dowd in Phoenix. It's Here and Now. If you're an actor, a singer, or a radio host, you might be familiar with warm-ups for your voice. Now, treating your voice like a roller coaster sounds kind of silly, but research shows that playing with your vocal cords like this can actually help you get through all sorts of high-pressure situations, even if you aren't a performer. Let's bring in some experts to explain. The voice we just heard belongs to Mathilde Schisko. She's a voice and performance coach from Vancouver, Canada, and her colleague and friend Michael Allison is a performance coach from Santa Barbara who wrote about the benefits of vocal play for Psychology Today. I spoke with them in May. Michael, you start us out. What exactly is vocal play?
Well, it's actually recruiting these special neural mechanisms in the voice, in the face, in listening with the middle ear that tie directly into this vagus nerve and can immediately shift heart rate and breathing and change how we feel.
You quoted the pop star Ed Sheeran in this piece that you wrote for Psychology Today. This is fascinating. He said, "I have social anxiety. I hate large groups of people," which is ironic given I play shows for a living. So what is happening in our bodies when we walk out onto a stage
on, but we have an observation or a felt experience that something has shifted. So we can put it all together.
Especially at the very end of that highway, the kazoo, I felt it. And when you did the one that fell down to the feet, I felt it in my body when you finished.
And that's it. It's the contagiousness of this. What happens when we're actually giving cues of warmth and welcome and playfulness and that reciprocity, because our voices really are a barometer of how we're feeling.
Speaking of reciprocity, can we do one, the three of us, together?
Yes, we sure can. This one is called Follow the Leader. Now, I will be the leader. Just do the exact same sound or word as I do after I say it. Okay, you guys ready?
Okay, got it.
Here we go. Hey!
Hey!
Whoosh. 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 Wow.
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 There you go.
That's lovely. Michael, let me bring you into this. First of all, what was that like for you? And is there an advantage to bringing other people into the exercise?
Absolutely. So, again, we're tapping into what is foundational as a human, in that we are meant and designed to be with each other and to form relationships grounded in trust. And how do we form that? Well, we form it through communication. And if we could see each other, we form it through our facial expressions and our body language. So we have that part that we're not seeing, but we can hear that connection through voice. And we all know that. We all know that we instinctively change how we speak to a baby or how we speak to a puppy. That isn't something we learn. That's wired into us. And so that's what we're really tapping into here. And it really does bring us back to the core of who we are as a species.
There is an elephant in this room, though. I am not personally very shy, although it took me many years to stop being embarrassed about my voice, and some of the best advice I ever got from a voice coach was to lean into the highs, to remember that your voice has high registers, too. I was often very embarrassed to let myself do this, and I'm a professional. I'm doing it for years. So when you get bunches of people in a room together, how do you handle the embarrassment, the laughter, the, oh my God, I can never do something?
I think it's about building trust to start with. Building trust and providing an environment where people feel safe enough to risk and be playful and be uncertain, to step up against the edges of their comfort zone.
I think if I could add, as someone who's watched Maddie do this in large groups, I think it's even uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of us to even share our voice to ourselves. Yeah. And so you're really touching on something really big, Peter, is that this is far more than just vocal play. It's helping ourselves actually reveal and reacquaint with our authentic voice and not hide our voice. And that to me is when I first met Maddie. I thought this needs to become something the general public does. This needs to be something that kids in school do. Because our voice is our most potent tool for communicating our own accessibility and fostering trust. It's everything.
Michael Allison and Maddie Shisco, performance coaches, spreading the good word about vocal play. Maddie, just can we do like a 10-second goodbye exercise here?
Absolutely, yes we can. So for now, let's just do a yummy heart opening. So just placing a hand on your heart. Yeah, and then just dropping in a little glimmer or a little moment of awe. Just like it could be a photo of someone, or you're thinking about someone really special, or you're about to go and do something really, really exciting. And just really gently on a heart, and then just holding your heart.
Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software for technical computing and model-based design. MathWorks, accelerating the pace of discovery in engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com. And Made In, makers of cookware found in restaurants around the world, offering a carbon steel non-stick griddle for home use, designed for use indoors or outdoors, on a grill or over an open flame. More at madeincookware.com.
It's here and now. An estimated 48 million Americans get foodborne illnesses every year. About 3,000 of them die. Now, federal programs to inspect foods and maintain safety are reeling from budget and staff cuts, meaning fewer chefs in the food that you and I eat. Sarah Todd is a reporter at our editorial partner, STAT, the Health and Medicine publication. Hey, Sarah, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Just to back up, when the food safety inspection system works well, how does it check what ends up at my grocery store, what my kids end up eating and drinking?
So there are FDA inspectors who are charged with taking a look at the facilities where our food is made, and they will hopefully catch any potential problems before they're able to create any sickness or risk for the American public.
Yeah. So let's talk about budget cuts to some of these programs you're talking about. One of them you're right about is a program called FoodNet. What does it do and what are the cuts?
So FoodNet is a really important program. What it does is it surveys a number of pathogens and reaches out to laboratories in 10 different state health departments that participate. Then they're able to check if there have been any cases of diseases like Salmonella and E. coli, and if so, that enables us to get a better sense of what kind of outbreaks the U.S. might be dealing with and match them across state lines as well.
Yeah. What do we know about the cuts to this program and the implications?
The cuts to this program are pretty dramatic. They used to monitor a total of 8 pathogens. Now that's down to just 2. Those are Salmonella and E. coli, which are 2 of the more common and very deadly ones. But the experts that I spoke with for this story are really concerned about that because they say that FoodNet is such an important resource for us to have a good sense of what's going on when it comes to food safety across the U.S. The concern is that our other ways of tracking across state lines rely on what's called passive surveillance, which means the state laboratories are reaching out to the CDC to report, hey, we're seeing this type of foodborne illness. So without FoodNet, we don't have the active surveillance going in the other direction. So we do have FoodNet still for 2 pathogens, but it's a significant reduction.
Yeah, well, as you say, there are several pathogens that are not being checked under this program. But if this kind of active communication between the federal government and the state and its health departments is compromised, what does that mean? Does that mean it'll take longer to know we're in a crisis?
Yeah. So what's being lost is both accuracy and the ability to compare trends over time, according to one of the experts that I spoke with. So that means that what we're losing is also any way to be able
companies think today's AI can do what humans do.
One company laid off a bunch of workers, and then they actually had to call back their workers because it turned out that AI could not do the job.
Plus, a powerful new telescope in the mountains of Chile, and late R&B singer Esther Phillips would have been 90 years old today, paying tribute to her mostly forgotten country album, which includes her take on the Hank Williams classic, coming up now.
After this news.
Live from NPR News in New York City, I'm Dwahisa Kautel. The Department of Education is poised to resume wage garnishment for some student loan debts. The move comes after a years-long pause due to the pandemic, as NPR's Sequoia Carrillo reports.
The Trump administration says it will resume seizing pay from student loan borrowers in default in January. The administration previously said it would resume garnishing tax refunds and Social Security benefits from qualifying borrowers last May, but backtracked a month later. A department spokesperson says the first notices will be sent out the week of January 7th to approximately 1,000 defaulted borrowers. The notices are expected to increase on a monthly basis throughout the year. Student loan experts say the timing of the move, colliding with rising healthcare costs, will put added strain on low and middle income borrowers. Sequoia Carrillo, NPR News.
More than a dozen top staff members at the conservative think tank Heritage Foundation have left to join a new group, Advancing American Freedom, or AAF. This group is founded by President Trump's first Vice President Mike Pence. His longtime advisor, Mark Short, explained to NPR today that their group will advance true conservative policies.
The reality is that there's a big reason why a lot of staff are coming to be part of our organization. We've grown steadily. The size of our budget continues to grow exponentially. And I think there's a hungry to have conservatism back. And I think that's what this is about.
Heritage Foundation's president, Kevin Roberts, wrote in an all-staff email that he wished them well, though the matter of their departure speaks volumes. The Food and Drug Administration has approved the first version of a popular new class of weight loss drugs that can be taken as a pill. NPR's Rob Stein reports.
The FDA approved a new form of the weight loss drug Wegovy that people can take as a daily pill. Until now, the so-called GLP-1 drugs for obesity could only be taken as weekly injections. The Wegovy pill seems to work about as well as the Wegovy shot. The pill, which is available for next month, the starting dose will cost about $49 a month for patients paying out of pocket, which is less than the shots. GLP-1 drugs mimic a natural chemical that make people feel full and revolutionize the treatment of obesity. A competing GLP-1 pill is expected to be approved soon. Rob Stein, NPR News.
A federal judge has extended a temporary order to prevent Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man who was wrongly deported to a mega prison in El Salvador in March, from being re-detained for now. His attorney Simon Sandoval Motionberg said another hearing is set for this Friday. This is NPR News from New York. Brown University has placed its campus police chief on leave in the wake of the deadly shooting there earlier this month, and it comes as the federal government says it will investigate the school's response. Ocean State Media's Jeremy Bernfeld reports.
Brown University President Christina Paxson says the school's vice president for public safety and emergency management is on leave. That's while the school works on an after-action review of the shooting. In the meantime, she hired a former Providence police chief to step in. The leadership change comes as the U.S. Department of Education said that it would investigate Brown in response to the shooting. A statement from the agency cited concerns about security at the school and the university's emergency notification system. Paxson also told the university community that a team is working on upgrades to campus security. The plan is to have them in place before the start of the spring semester. For NPR News, I'm Jeremy Bernfeld in Providence, Rhode Island.
The Mexican nonprofit foundation Micho y Mau posted on its official social media a condolence message honoring the victims of yesterday's crash near Galveston, Texas. A Mexican naval plane carrying one of the foundation's childbirth victims to a hospital, flying in dense fog, crashed, killing at least 5 people. A local yacht captain who assisted in the recovery efforts said he took 2 police officers to the wreckage site where they helped to rescue 2 people. One person Secretariat of the Navy. I'm Dwali Saikautel, NPR News from New York City.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Heifer International, where people can donate animal gifts to families living in poverty. Whether it's a goat, chicken, or cow, each gift is intended to help families earn a sustainable income. Heifer.org/NPR.
Support for State Impact Oklahoma on Public Radio Tulsa is provided by the Oklahoma Securities Department, recommending the designation of a trusted contact who a financial institution may call regarding suspected fraud or exploitation. More at investedok.org.
Public Radio 89.5, KWGS HD1 Tulsa. National Public Radio in HD from the University of Tulsa.
From NPR and WBUR, I'm Scott Tong in Washington, D.C.
I'm Peter O'Dowd in Phoenix. It's here and now. In the past 11 months, the Trump administration has launched an aggressive campaign against migrants in the United States, and the effort has touched millions of lives. According to NPR, the White House has stripped more than 1.6 million people of the legal status that allows them to live in this country. It is the largest removal of deportation protections from legal migrants in U.S. history. NPR correspondent Jimena Bustillo has been reporting that sometimes migrants are deported with little or no due process. Jimena, welcome.
Hey there.
So speaking of due process, let's start with the news. A federal judge has ruled that nearly 140 migrants deported to El Salvador in March were not given due process, and the administration was ordered to do something about that by January 5th. What do we know?
Right. Essentially, Judge James Boasberg issued an order late last night, and he ordered that the administration return men that were sent to a notorious prison in El Salvador and then later Venezuela to have some sort of due process hearings or even be returned from where they are right now in Venezuela. It's not clear how the government would facilitate this. You know, this original lawsuit was brought by about 6 men in that group. Boasberg certified a class in his order, and by doing that, they can represent an entire group of about 137 men who were removed. And you might remember that these were the Venezuelan men that the Trump administration quickly removed overnight out of the country using an 18th century wartime power called the Alien Enemies Act.
And we don't know whether this means they would have to be brought back to the United States?
The order seems to make it a little bit flexible that, you know, it's return them or provide some sort of due process hearing for them, even from abroad. We also expect the administration to challenge and issue an appeal request on this order.
Separately, the question of due process comes up in other immigration stories as well. NPR found there is a skyrocketing number of no-shows in immigration courts across the United States. Why is that?
So, you know, let's say that you are in the country illegally, you might get a notice to appear in immigration court, and that usually comes in the mail. You don't have to be arrested or detained in order to get one, but it tells you the specific place and time to show up before a judge. And if you don't show up, the government may have the right to order your deportation, to request that of the judge, and the judge can approve it. And that is called an in absentia removal. Now, there's many reasons why someone may not show up. You know, one reason is a concern of being detained at immigration court, as we have seen in many viral images and videos since the summer months. But immigration attorneys have also said that there are several other reasons why people might not show up. That includes mail delays in getting these notices to appear, or notices even being sent to completely wrong addresses. And, you know, this had been an issue in prior years and prior administrations, even though we are seeing that rate of in absentia removals seemingly, according to our early analysis, you know, nearly triple in this last fiscal year.
You spoke with Andrew Arthur from the Center for Immigration Studies about this. It's a group that advocates for lower levels of migration, and here's what he told you.
In essence, by failing to appear, they were given their due process. They simply opted not to take the government up on the offer and are now amenable to removal.
Jimena, it sounds like these no-shows may actually benefit the Trump administration and its priorities.
Right. You in order for the administration to remove someone, there does need to be an order of deportation. And immigration judges, rubber stamp many of those. And so the administration wants more judges to issue that approval. Now, it is unclear how many of the people with these in absentia removal orders have been detained, much less deported. And, some lawyers have even told me that it is possible some of these people left the country on their own or, missed appointments because they may have been detained. In some cases, immigrants can try and, legally fight to have their cases reopened, though it is important to note that most people in immigration court at this stage are not represented by a lawyer.
You've also got reporting out today that more than 1.6 million immigrants have lost their legal status in the first 11 months under this second Trump administration. That, as I said, is the largest removal of deportation protections for legal migrants in the history of this country. So just briefly, what do we know about this and how that happened?
Right, since the start of the administration, the White House and its various agencies have moved to cancel several programs, revoke visas, kind of do things like that provided some sort of protection from deportation. A good example of this is temporary protected status, or TPS, has been canceled for about 10 countries, and that's been, terminated throughout different months of the year for different countries. That's just one category, but it does make up about 1 million people. So some people will see their status run out next year. Others may have found other pathways to legal status, but it is still this mass cancellation of broader protections. The State Department is another agency that has revoked 85,000 visas of all kinds this year, and that is double the number of the year prior, they've said.
All right. Jimena Bustillo, NPR's correspondent covering immigration, thank you very much for your reporting.
Thank you.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro finds himself on the receiving end of a new threat from President Trump.
He can do whatever he wants. It's all right. Whatever he wants to do. If he wants to do something, if he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough.
Trump also announced plans to build a new class of warships named after him. Let's discuss it all with Here Now security analyst Jim Walsh. He's Senior Research Associate at MIT's Security Studies program. Tim, always good to have you.
Great to be with you. Happy holidays to you and yours.
And to you, thank you. First, Venezuela. The U.S. has, as you know, struck what it calls drug boats. It's been pursuing oil tankers from Venezuela last night. The president says he talked to U.S. oil companies about returning to drilling in Venezuela. A lot to follow. Is the administration's mission, its goal, clear to you?
It's not. I mean, I can guess. The best of all possible worlds from a Trump administration perspective. The hope would be that you can bluff Maduro into giving in. That by assembling a lot of ships, kill a boat of fishermen here, drug dealers, grab a tanker there, that he'll feel pressure and voluntarily withdraw. That traditionally has not been a very successful policy. I mean, we can go back country after country that we have put maximum pressure on, and the results are often meager because it's hard to cause regime change if you don't go inside a country.
Yeah, and we should note that the U.S. has tried to nudge aside Maduro in the past. He has lasted more than 10 years. So, in the estimation of some, he's really a political survivor here. I want to turn to naval shipbuilding. The president yesterday announced new ships that the U.S. will manufacture. They'll be very large, more powerful than during World War II. Let's listen.
Well, America's built many new warships over the years. They've tended to be smaller, much smaller, and not conducive to where we are, where we're going, with peace through strength.
So this plan is for ships to carry large guns, super-fast cruise missiles, among other weapons. The question is, does the U.S. Navy need big new battleships?
Well, Scott, I think a key skill in the Trump era is being able to tell the difference between issues that are real issues and issues that are political theater, storm and fury, signifying nothing. Building a Trump battleship falls into the second category. It's not going to happen, period. Period, 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 period. There will be no Trump battleship for about 17 different reasons. So it's an announcement. There'll be a lot of talking about it. Maybe people are familiar with this dynamic. And then I don't expect very much to come from it because it's going to be nearly impossible.
Well, give me one reason from your 17.
Okay.
Why this is not going to
We
happen.
only have so many minutes, but I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
The U.S. lacks the shipbuilding capacity to do this. That's reason number one. We have a declining U.S. industrial military base, and in all our shipbuilding, as it stands right now, most major projects are over budget, behind schedule, and underproducing the number of ships they said they were going to produce. That's now, with the current set of orders, we are at capacity. We don't have the facilities, and we don't have the labor to build them. So I don't know how you do all of that and the stuff we already supposed to be doing all at the same time.
Now, there's been some focus recently in the Navy on smaller, more nimble vessels. They only carry a few missiles or a few drones, spread out the risk of just one ship going down. So how does this new focus, at least this announced focus on large ships, fit into where the Navy's going?
Plain and simple, it doesn't. I mean, this is the biggest ship, if we ever build it, which we won't. It would be the biggest surface ship built in decades, and a lot has happened since World War II, and we saw it play out, and we're seeing it play out in Russia-Ukraine. Drones and cheap missiles took out all those Russian tanks. We are building the equivalent of a giant Russian tank to float on the water, which will be a missile sponge. It will be, it could be quite easy to take out. The idea of building lots of small platforms distributed across a network is that you're not as vulnerable, and that's where most of the naval strategy has been moving in recent decades.
Yeah. And as you say, Jim, we've seen some of this playing out in the Black Sea too, with the Russian warships.
Exactly, unmanned drones, right? Well, one drone takes out, some of their biggest ships in the fleet. So it's sort of moving against the grain of how people are thinking about modern warfare.
Yeah, Jim, have a minute here. What state is the U.S. Navy in now that China has the world's largest fleet proportions?
Well, it's a mixed bag. They're in the common vocabulary word you hear in policy circles, they're a near-peer competitor. They're not better than us in everything. We're better than them in a lot of things. But when it comes to shipbuilding, remember, we're building our ships, and where are they going? They're going to the Pacific because we're trying to hem in China, which is far, far, far away, and you need ships to do that. They build them faster, cheaper, at a higher pace than we do, and so it's going to be hard to catch up.
All right. KRNO security analyst Jim Walsh, also senior research associate at MIT Security Studies Program. Jim, thanks so much.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And to you. You're listening to Here and Now.
We're hearing the sound of a whole turkey slowly lowered into boiling oil, because for some people, this is the season of fried turkey. How does fried turkey do as leftovers? Usually there are none. Backyard turkey frying as practiced safely by my brother Bruce on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on Public Radio 89.5.
As we look back on the events of 2025, it's a reminder that independent journalism is the backbone of a healthy democracy. And when a democracy is facing threats, a strong and free press is even more important. This is Anna Metcalf. Your financial support will help Public Radio Tulsa and NPR sustain this important work in the year ahead. Your year-end donation really makes a difference at publicradiotulsa.org. Thank you.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by contributing listeners like you and by the Tulsa Zoo, offering annual zoo memberships that support the zoo's conservation mission. More about zoo membership is available at tulsazoo.org/membership.
Public Radio in HD from the University of Tulsa. Public Radio 89.5. KWGS HD1 Tulsa.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from Americans United for Separation of Church and State, defending church-state separation and the First Amendment, including freedom of the press, for nearly 80 years. Learn more at au.org.
crossed genres to release. Music album. Esther Phillips would have been 90 years old today, but she died at the age of 48 after a lifelong struggle with addiction. Our next guest says that album, The Countryside of Esther Phillips, is the best country album you've probably never heard of. Mike Hall wrote about it in the December issue of Texas Monthly. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Peter. It's great to be here.
So you were a longtime fan of Esther Phillips, but you didn't know she released a country album in the 1960s. How did you first come across it?
Well, I was, we're Texas Monthly, so we do stories about Texas artists. And I didn't know Esther was a Texas artist until I heard a podcast. I mean, I've known her music all my life. I used to love listening to her when I was a teenager, but I had no idea about the breadth of her music. And the thing that really knocked me out was discovering that she had made this country record in 1962 it wasn't just a country record, it was a great country record.
So Esther Phillips, born in Texas, she also had a difficult life. I see she started singing professionally after she won a talent competition when she was just 13 years old. Talk about her rise to fame.
Well, she lived between her mom, who lived in L.A. in Watts, and her dad, who lived in Houston. They split up, so she would go back and forth. And her sister entered her into a talent contest because Esther